Welcome back to Daily Dose of Donna. Today is Wednesday, Hump Day, January 18th, 2023. And here we are, 5 days a week. I told you guys, no matter how busy I am, no matter how stressed out I am, I'm currently in the middle of launching a big video program called Show Up on Video. And it's taken all my time. I'm spending all my time on calls with people on, discover. It's definitely an issue these days to launch a big high ticket program. I've noticed for those of you that are online entrepreneurs, it is very different than it used to be. I used to just talk about it on stories and it was like good enough. Now, people are much more wary about where they're spending their money. They're much more questioning whether, you're the one, which is why I always talk about on my other podcast, Show Up on Video, the importance of personal branding and really showing up consistently so your audience gets to know you, like you, trust you, binge you. No, I say know you, like you, binge you, trust you, and then buy from you. I'm going to start a new one. Instead of know, like, trust, it's know, like, binge, trust, buy. I'm going to talk about it online. Okay. So, but that's for my other podcast. That's work related. Today, we're going to talk about a show that is so groundbreaking. And I talked about it on TikTok. So if you follow me from TikTok, you know that it is called Fleishman is in Trouble. I will link to it below, or I'll link to whatever I can find on it below. You guys, Fleishman is in Trouble is a show that I kind of obsessed over like a little while ago. I watched it at the end of the year, beginning of the year, and I couldn't get enough of it. And I talked about it on TikTok, but only in the last couple days has this video really taken off because people are starting to obsess over the show. The more that time goes by, more people are watching it. And it is such an insanely groundbreaking show. And I always talk about this, for those of you guys that don't know a lot about who I am married. I am 41 years old. I am a mom of two. I'm Jewish. And the reason why I mention all of these things is because it's all actually very, it's kind of coincidental with that show, Fleischman is in Trouble, because the show is about essentially the show wraps around the voiceover. The narrator is a 41-year-old married with two kids, Jewish woman, right? Now, she gave up her job, so she doesn't work. She lives in the suburbs and she used to live in the city, and she's kind of bored, right? So that is like a very well-known part of the show, but the show covers a lot of things. It covers divorce. It covers, marriage. It covers being a parent. It covers like growing up and getting a little bit bored in your own life. And I am the first to say this, and I said it to my husband actually. So this is not a hiding thing, but I said to my husband, I was like, Libby, who plays this narrator of the show. This is 8 episodes, by the way. So if you're not watching, you gotta watch it. Libby is me. She's me. Because minus a couple of the things, like she gets pretty depressed and she's really bored and she overeats and, starts smoking cigarettes nonstop. Like there's a couple things about her that are a little different than me. But she is starting to kind of hit the stage in her life where she's like, is that it? Is that all? And I was last year, 2021 and 2022 were those years for me where I started to question, like, is that it? I'm married. I have a home, like we own a home. I have my 2 kids, not having any more kids. I am, my whole life revolves around them. I'm waking up early in the morning to get my workout in before I have to take them to school. And then I have to deal with work. And then I have to do the laundry. And then I have to cook. And then I have to clean. And then I have to make sure homework is done. And then it's all again the next day. And you start to almost get a little bit like WTF. Like I'm a little bored, right? Which is why I've leaned so heavily into my business and content creation, which is why I'm doing this podcast. And I really truly believe I'm not going to tell you guys what happens in the show. I think you must watch it. You don't have to be married. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be a 41-year-old woman. You just have to be a person because I think you'll connect to something. Like, for example, there's this one line in the show that completely changed my life. And it was this. It was divorce is an earthquake between two people, But what you don't realize is that it is a chronic disaster for the children involved. And I am a divorced kid. Like my parents were divorced when I was really young. My parents separated when I was 6 months old. And I grew up under a very contentious divorced parents, like going to court, the whole shebang. And didn't see my dad for a while, didn't see, like all kinds of things. And I will tell you, now as an adult, I've been able to move past that. I'm, way past that. But in my childhood and my teens and even my 20s, I was so fucked up from being a child of divorce. And it's not because I'm not mad at my parents for getting divorced. I think they would be awful together. I just think that when you are, it depends how you divorce, right? Like my parents were in a really contentious divorce and they fought a lot and they they involved us in everything and they told us secrets and said, don't tell the other person. And they lied to each other and they dealt with money and they talked about money and they asked us to ask the other for money. Like when I was 11, my mom told me to go ask my dad to pay for my braces and he said no. And he was a very, very wealthy OBGYN in Beverly Hills, which is an obstetrician gynecologist at the most expensive area in the world. And he lived in a beautiful home and he said no because he wanted my mom to deal with it. He didn't want me to deal with it. So like those kinds of things. So it's just so interesting as you get, to an adult. And I'm in a fairly happy marriage. Like there's no, looming divorce right now, but there are times where you hate each other. There are times where I literally can't stand my husband. I can't even look at him, right? And then there's times where he looks at me probably with such anger and frustration and annoyance. Of course he does, right? We're just human. Like we're supposed to live together. My friend Molly always tells me this, that marriage is constructed for when you're 30, when you die of 39 from typhoid. You're not supposed to live so many years with one person. And it's so true. Like marriage is bananas. It's bananas that you meet someone, you have a crush on them. You think they're hot, like you hope that they text you or call you, and then the next thing you know, like you're supposed to live an entire life with them and deal with like all kinds of struggles and ups and downs and kids and money and sickness and natural disasters and pandemics and job loss and mental health issues and dogs dying and cracks in the ceiling when there's roof leaks and like you're supposed to just like figure it out. And you met like when you guys just like had a crush on each other. Like I just find it so interesting. And I also find it interesting that like when you marry someone, you know, you don't imagine by any means, you don't even know, you can't even wrap your head around what could potentially come up for you, right? You can't even wrap your head around the potential issues of what could become an issue, right? Of course, like what do you hear of? Infidelity, financial issues, religion, sex, like that stuff about. What you don't think about is how you guys disagree about the way that you parent one of your kids who deals with anxiety. What you don't talk about is how much screen time you're going to give one of your kids if he, is a jerk. You don't talk about who's going to clean up the dog poop. And you don't talk about, making the bed every morning, right? You don't talk about wiping down the shower doors with a squeegee. It's so insane. Like you don't talk about these like little things that start to really fester and like come in and dig in, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm spending the rest of my life with this person. Now, ideally, you have more good than bad, so it makes it worth it. But this show, Fleishman is in Trouble, really opened my eyes up to life and the reality that, a lot of us are suffering in silence. A lot of us are struggling in silence. A lot of us feel like everyone around us has this perfect experience and this perfect marriage where they're just like communicating well and getting along well. And I know personally that I spend a lot of times with friends and I see their husbands and I'm like, you're so lucky because he does this and he does that. And you never, he's obsessed with cleaning. So like whatever. But then I talk to the girlfriend and she's like, no, you don't understand. He's like this when you're around. You don't know how he is when you're not. it's so easy to get kind of caught up in this idea of, what other people are and why don't we have. And this, by the way, goes into that's important. We have a no fester rule, but this whole idea of what goes into everyone's homes, like we don't know what's in everyone's homes. And that's why a show like Fleishman is in Trouble was so good for me, because it truly opened up my eyes to, like, it opens the doors to people's lives that are so realistic and happen way more often than not. Most of the houses that you walk by on the street when you take your dogs for a walk, there's some major drama going on in those homes. It may not be fighting. It may not be, verbal, physical, anything crazy like that. It may be secrets. It may be sicknesses. It may be anxieties, mental health issues. Like, we don't know, right? We see this all the time where people were shocked, like with what everything happened with Twitch at the beginning of the year, or at the end of last year. I mean, it's so shocking because we don't understand how that's happening when all we see is what we see, right? All we see is what we see on social, online, even just at a party. Like, how often do you go to parties with your friends and you realize, like, you think, oh my God, they're so happy, and they're going home in the car and just getting into a massive argument? You don't know. One of the comments on TikTok, I'm live on TikTok right now, says one of our daughters would look at our friend's Christmas card and say they are perfect. They are divorced now. Bam, Randy. Exactly. They are divorced now. And that's what happens over and over. There's one friend of mine who I met her when my kids were really, really young. Like, I think I was pregnant with my second. I don't even think I had Oliver, and he's 7 now. So this was years ago. And I literally was convinced. I was convinced that they were just the happiest in the entire world because they had this perfect, adorable home. 2 girls, handsome guy, very successful, beautiful wife. They bought this gorgeous home here in Sherman Oaks, like this most beautiful, amazing, you know, life that they lived. And then I went out with her for lunch one day and she told me he has a drinking problem, but he doesn't want to admit he has a drinking problem. And then she told me that they fight a lot and he does this and he does that and he sleeps on the couch. But every time I would see them, they would still like this perfect life. And I was so confused by it because I fell for it. Even though she told me shit was bad, I would still go on Facebook and be like, oh, but, well, they're divorced right now. She's happily remarried. Now, I'm not saying that that's the answer, but I'm just saying we need to stop assuming the grass is greener in every case of our lives, right? On social, in real life, about marriage, about career, about hair color, about body types, about money. Because no matter where you are, there's always greener grass, right? No matter where you are, there's something else that looks better. And I am the first to admit that I have shiny object syndrome. I am always looking for someone else who maybe is doing it better or has better or something I want. And I've talked about envy on this show before. So that is what, Fleischman is in Trouble really opened up for me. Yes, it really opened up this idea that, like, it's okay. It's normalizing the fact that you don't have to be so freaking happy. It's normalizing the fact that sometimes things are not exactly what you want them to be in your life. And it doesn't mean that you have to jump ship, and it doesn't mean that you're depressed, and it doesn't mean that you have to get a divorce. It doesn't mean that you have to, call it off or end things or change your entire life and career or whatever. It just means that it's okay to not be in a constant state of happiness. And it's okay to share that with people. Actually, the more people share with me when they're struggling, the more I like them. Now, it's not like misery likes company. I like real. And so that's why I share openly and honestly about my anxiety and my panic attacks. That's why on TikTok or on Instagram, I talk all about this stuff. Talk about the fact that I grew up with no money. I talk about the fact that I have money issues, like money mindset issues. I talk about the fact that I'm constantly comparing myself. I never hide from any of that. So this episode went a little long today. It's already 14 minutes, but Fleischman is in Trouble. It's 8 episodes. It's on Hulu. Watch it and let me know your thoughts. I need to know what your guys' thoughts are and if you connected with it as much as I did. All right, you guys, see you tomorrow.